You hear a little squeak in your sewing machine, they just stay there, so you think you've broken the machine. This is part of what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm like, ding, 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 yes. Hi, welcome or welcome back. I am Dawn and I'm at the lake. So this channel is called Dawn at the Lake or Lakeside Quilt Making Arts because the objective here is I'm discovering and exploring all of the arts of quilt making. See my purple hands? This is part of what we're going to be talking about today. Now, so on this channel, I'm always trying to move the needle. That's my hashtag. And that's a hashtag that I'm trying to reinforce to everybody. Keep moving the needle or move the needle or keep that needle moving, doing it one stitch at a time, doing the best you can. Well, that's been my struggle the last 2 or 3 days, is just trying to keep the needle moving, the literal needle moving, as in this one. So I've been having some complications and I've learned some things. Some of the things, tips I'm about to give you, I was going to give you anyway. But I do have a couple of tips about my machine that I will share just in case it's relative to one of you. So my tip is not just to wear these kind of gloves whenever you're doing some quilting so you can move your project around, but don't feel bad if you cut some holes out of them. I do a whole lot better if I have a little bit of ability to feel what it is that I'm moving, what it is I'm holding. And then sometimes you got to be able to use your fingers, and you don't need threads getting caught in what you're doing. So it just works out best for me. I went ahead and cut some little holes out. I feel like cutting a couple of them a little bit more. I don't know. I may or may not. Don't know. It still isn't perfect. I'm discovering I'm not great at Freemotion quilting. I got a long ways to go before I feel like I am doing a good enough job on anything free motion that I would do anything for anybody else. So I think part of the problem though is, number one, inexperience, but also with my machine. I'm just pretty new to this machine. I'm fairly new to having an intelligent machine. I've always just had a very simple Singer, straight stitch, zigzag, that kind of thing. That's the most it would do. But this one is a, more intelligent machine. It's a Brother and Novus PS 700, I believe it is. Yeah, PS 700. And it's a fantastic machine. I think I should have had some classes in it. I got it from a friend who's kind of got it on permanent loan for me. And, bless her heart, because I'm putting the thing to use. And then she bought it used from somebody else. So being able to get the instructions that would have come with it whenever you bought it, that's a ship that sailed a long time ago. So another tip I was going to give you guys is if you do have a Brother PS 700, and you're trying to do some free motion quilting and you've got that knee lift bar in there, take it out because it doesn't like to do free motion quilting with that thing attached. Who knew? Also, if you have your feed dogs raised, pulled down, and you want to go back to having them put up, and you flip the little switch, which is on the back of the machine, you have to take out the little tray just to access that little switch. And you want to put your feed dogs back up, and you flip that switch, they don't just pop back up. They just stay there. So you think you've broken the machine. But what you got to do is you flip that switch, and then everything is fine. You take your dial on the side, and then you make a full rotation with it. And the feed dogs just pop back up. Took me forever to figure that out. Now, I've done some free motion stitching before. I did it, I think, back in April. So I had already had some familiarity with all this, but I hadn't done any since then. So it just was not and is not second nature to me. So I had to rediscover these things. All the while I'm trying to figure out how to quilt the bottom of this sleep sack. So I don't have my stitches cut off. And this is the back of it, kind of like the dark thread, and I definitely like that stitching that I did on the hay bales. That looks really good. You can kind of see it there. I try to do kind of concentric circles, but my hay bales are not complete circles. And I was struggling. I just was struggling. I didn't have my gloves on yet, and trying to make a smooth pass underneath the needle just wasn't happening. And part of it was familiarity with the machine. Part of it was familiarity with doing it at all. Um, and just being tense and not having a good grip, and then not having a real super smooth, you know how you can put down different surface so that your project can slide really easily. Definitely recommend those along with your gloves or something else to give it a good grip. And then another tip I have a Freemotion Quilting foot that looks something like this. And, you know, they come in plastic and they come like this, and they have some that have an open foot. I highly recommend the one with an open foot. You got to be careful that your finger doesn't go in there. But I do highly recommend the one with an open foot. And again, this is not an open foot, even though it has a little indentation there. Um, that way you have a better chance of seeing what it is, where it is that your needle is moving to, than you do when you have to look over and around the ring of that section of the foot, especially on the plastic ones that have some height to them. It's an issue. Okay, so another tip: if you hear a little squeak in your sewing machine, and you take off the side of it and you oil everything that moves, everything that you know you're supposed to oil, and you still have a squeak, and you keep on oiling it because you still have a squeak and you don't want to ruin the sewing machine by using it while it squeaks. Be careful not to over oil, because even though I cut out some of this so that I could use it to dab off where I thought any oil might be dripping, it still, it still dripped on, and that's fine that it drips there. I had that underneath the needle while I was oiling. But then later, after I had been stitching, doing my free motion stitching, yeah, you can kind of see that free motion stitching there. There you go. I had that setting underneath the needle. And so I knew I was going to get a drop there. And then I got smart. I moved this out from underneath the needle while I was doing the oiling and set it aside. And I put something else underneath there. And while I was looking for that squeak, which ended up being my presser foot, ended up being this spring of the foot. So it wasn't even inside the machine, which is why I couldn't hunt it, which is why I over oiled my machine. Well, hours later, I got a drop of oil right there. Not hours later. Yeah, actually, hours later. It was probably about 2 hours later. I got a little drop by the machine. So think about that, guys. Think about that. So I started off with a really tight stipple and then went to something much looser just because the whole thing was kind of causing me some anxiety. It just, I was skipping stitches. There's just a lot to learn when you're trying to do either a pattern stitch or just a straight stitch and do free motion. It's just a lot. So I'd highly recommend, if you're not doing something like this, a sampler quilt that you're just throwing all the tricks at it, or you're trying to learn how to do rings, how to do cotton balls, how to do hay bales, how to do trees, how to do it all in improv. If you aren't working any sample quilts, start doing it. Let it be something that you're not going to be beating yourself up where there's mistakes, but start from the beginning and finish it. And that's what this little sampler quilt has been doing for me. As you know, this little quilt is going to be turned into a sleep sack for my grandbaby. Maybe if I do my job right as her grandma, she's going to care about such things. And when she is investigating her sleep sack when she's in her 20s, and she'll be looking at how good of a seamstress her grandmother was, maybe she'll be embarrassed that I wasn't so good on that one. But until then, she's going to probably love it. So my point is, dive in. Don't beat yourself up. Start and go all the way to completion, because all the different steps teach us something. Just do something that it doesn't matter to you. Do something that matters to you. The project matters to you enough that you're going to push through, and then also has that nice little balance of not mattering to you so much if your flaws show up. This is going to be in a house of where there's 3 people right now. And one day one of her siblings may sleep in it too. Or I'll make another one for one of the siblings. I don't know. So I want to show you what all I did. So if you didn't catch the last video, I had so much fun talking to you guys in that video. That video is called Batting, Bowls, and Burrs, because we talked about the kind of batting that I have in here. You'll see that I'm using the cotton. No, I'm sorry, this is the bamboo. This is the bamboo that I'm using in here, and it's just so soft. And then I figured out how to make our cotton bowls and how to make our burrs. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to clean this up now. I'm going to give you a better angle of how I'm doing that. I'm going to straighten up everything. The very first thing that you do is you do a stay stitch all the way around. And that was the top thing on my list. So at the end of that video, you saw that for a tip for myself, I gave myself a list of what I was going to do when I came into the studio next. And that is so helpful. It's something I used to do when I was working before, when I ran businesses and when I was working corporately, like lists. I had lists for my list for my list. I had a hot list of things you did when you first got in. So you came back in and, your brain is still foggy because all the stuff that happened at home, and now you're at work and you're trying to turn one brain off and turn on another brain. Well, this accesses all the things in that brain that you had the previous day. So highly recommend keeping a notebook nearby. I just get little, this is a cheap one from the dollar store. And I think I got several for $1 actually, or something like that. I don't know. I don't care. But it's not a precious thing. I can throw it around, whatever, I can carry it with me. It's just something for me to keep some notes on. I'm so digital. I was an early adapter to everything digital. I had a Palm 5, I want to say, back in, the year 2000. I was a heavy texter before most people were accepting text at all. It was just my thing. So I have loads of files, and I highly use my notes section of my phone and on my computer and on my iPad, and I'm very comfortable with that. But there is no denying how resourceful this kind of thing is. So the first note I had was stay stitched the perimeter. I wanted to make sure I remembered that because on my unicorn quilt, I had forgotten to do that and it had some puckering. So I did. First thing when I came down, I did that. The next thing is I wanted to make the bias strips for the stems for the cotton bowls. I've yet to do that, so I don't have a check mark by it. Then I want to decide on the quilting pattern and color and then quilt it. Then the next thing I want to do is on this list is I got to fix this house. I've been telling you guys, I've been proudly boasting how I've not bought any fabric for this quilt, except for the flannel that I had to buy for here and for the zipper. I've not had to buy anything for this quilt. And I've also been bragging about how I'm just pushing forward. Things I didn't like, I just said it's going to be fine. In the whole grand picture of things, it'll be fine. Like, I don't love my hay bale, but the whole picture, it works, doesn't it? I think it works. I'm pleased with it. I'm getting close, guys. I'm getting really close to being at that point where I got to start thinking about how to put this thing together. Even though I've been boasting about not getting hung up on anything, I can't let the condition of this roof or the appearance of this roof, I can't let it slide. It has been bugging me and bugging me. And I had one of the viewers contact me and suggest it needs eaves. And I'm like, ding, 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 ding. Yes, it needs eaves. And then she also suggested that it be tilted the other direction a little bit. And I don't want to do that by taking the roof and setting it more this way. What I want to do is I want to take this log of the log cabin and angle it more this way, because I don't want any of the roof to cover up the lettering there, because what it shows is pretty important things for our family. The Gulf Coast, the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, Alabama, and the Chehaw State Park. I've enjoyed that showing. That's going to get covered up. I'll be sacrificing that whenever I fix it. So, but that's okay. But it's U.S. Space and Rocket Center, very important to our family. And Gulf Coast, we've been to the beaches thousands of times. not thousands, I'm sorry, liar, liar, pants on fire. I think I can fix the aesthetics of this roof if I make a few changes. So I am going to backtrack a little bit on that. Remember, I just tucked under the point. See, I love that so much more. I really thought I liked the proportions better whenever it was turned under, but I like that so much more. Even though it's whimsical being pointed the way it is, I like it so much more. I think if it is straighter and then has a tilt to it, it's just not. And it needs an eaves. How am I going to put the eaves in? And I still think it needs the eaves. The viewer was right. So my thoughts on how I'm going to achieve putting in some eaves is embroidery, kind of like how I did the barn over here on this side. I think I would do something similar and just kind of come out here with a curly Q, maybe a fancy little curly Q. I like that idea a lot. And maybe some kind of curly Q that comes out of the top of the house. I don't know, thinking about it. I have a name for this little sleep sack and for this project, and it's called the Enchanted Place. And I want to read to you where that comes from. This is where I got the name of calling this the Enchanted Place. For Winnie the Pooh, there's this scene where Winnie and Christopher Robin are saying goodbye because Christopher is getting older. And the quote is, "Ever there is a tomorrow when we're not together, there is something you must always remember. You are braver than you believe, and smarter than you think, stronger than you seem. But the most important thing is, even if we are apart, I'll always be with you." So that's where we're going to leave things for today. Next thing I'm going to do, like I said, is work on that house, get that situated. I'm going to go ahead and make the sandwich for the two front pieces and get those quilted. I'm not sure what pattern I'm going to use on those. I don't think I want to do a stippling pattern. I don't think I want a linear one either. I definitely don't want a cross hatch. Maybe a cross hatch is good. Maybe I should attempt to do something cloud-like. I don't know. I'm going to be thinking about that, and I hopefully will not make the mistake of starting before I get it thought out. I think I'm so close. I got to just push on, and that's going to be the objective for today. I'll show you as things progress. We're going to work on that house. We're going to work on the bottom. The zipper comes in, I think, on Friday, and then we start putting this thing together. I'm going to make that part of the video series as brief as I can and still bring you content on a regular basis because I know this is not a garment channel. But if you've been following along this whole time, then you kind of care about what happens to the sleep sack. And I think you'll want to see that. Thanks for being here on this journey with me. If you have any comments about how we might want to do the quilting on the front of the sleep sack, just let me know. I am all ears. Hopefully I'll have this video out for you guys to see before I get that quilting done. So please comment anything, whatever you'd want to see on there. And I hope some of my tips have helped you. Thank you for being here on this journey, and I'll see you in the next video. See you soon. Bye-bye. Keep moving that needle.